Of the compact foldables, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip has been the biggest success by far. There's obviously something nostalgic about having a flip phone for those who remember carrying them around, and there's equally something so satisfying about folding an actual display into a more pocketable clamshell form factor. Here's the thing, I was a Z Flip hater until I spent time with last year's Galaxy Z Flip 3, and recently I went hands-on with the Galaxy Z Flip 4, and man, these things just keep getting better and better. Now I'll explain what Samsung did to change my mind in this video while also giving you my early impressions of the latest Z Flip 4 hardware. Now for some background, there was the original Galaxy Z Flip and then a Z Flip 5G, which added faster cellular connectivity and which I assume Samsung considers to be the second flip, since the one after that was called the Z Flip 3. Now side by side, the Z Flip 4 and the original Z Flip aren't even that different. The Z Flip 4 is 17.1 millimeters thin at the hinge when folded, while the Z Flip was around 17.4 millimeters. Now when you unfold, the Z Flip 4 is shorter and narrower, but both smartphones are equally thin at 6.9 millimeters. So basically Samsung has found something that works and they've stuck with it, at least when it comes to shape and size. Now I definitely appreciate this year's tighter build. Weight this year is 187 grams, up from 183 grams on all the previous models. It remains a device with a premium build thanks to the Armor aluminum and Gorilla Glass Victus. The device also retains the IPX8 certification, which it got last year, which means the Z Flip 4 can be submerged in water for up to 30 minutes at a depth of 1.5 meters with no issues. Although it's interesting that there's still no dust resistance rating, but still it can survive splashes and spills. But overall, I think the build quality of the Z Flip 4 feels much more solid and robust compared to the original Z Flip, especially with that added water protection. Now I'll be testing this out more in the full review, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss that one. The Z Flip 4 keeps the 1.9 inch Super AMOLED cover display that we first saw last year. This is an always-on display that supports notifications and widgets. Using the cover display for selfies is also a lot easier with that extra real estate. Just double tap on the power button and you're taking selfies with the primary rear camera, which is still super cool. Again, you're using the better rear camera when taking your selfies as opposed to the less capable front camera on the inside display. Now more on the cameras in a minute, but first let's talk about the folding display. On the Z Flip 4, it's the same size as the previous generation, a 6.7 inch panel with a full HD plus resolution and a 22:9 aspect ratio. Samsung calls it the Infinity Flex display with dynamic AMOLED 2X. That just means you're getting a variable refresh rate up to 120 Hertz and a protective layer for 80% better resistance compared to the first couple of Z Flip devices. Samsung is also working on making software as intuitive as possible. So when using Flex mode, there's a new panel that makes apps look better and easier to use. And when you're watching a video, the phone brings all your brightness and volume controls right to the bottom half of the display for easy reachability. It also does something similar when you're in camera mode. Aside from all that though, the Z Flip 4 just behaves like a regular smartphone when opened up. And this is actually why I was a hater, and again, I admit it. You see, it seemed to me that the focus on the original Z Flip was on the cool factor of folding up the phone. But the second you unfolded it, it was just, in my opinion again, a subpar Galaxy S20. When I'm actually using the phone, I would rather have an S20 in my hand, or in this case, an S22 in my hand, as opposed to an unfolded Z Flip. Because at that point, what's the difference? It's no longer folded, you're in candy bar mode, if you will, and the Galaxy S was the better phone from a hardware perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that cool factor sells, but paying a premium for a phone that didn't bring the same level of power did bother me. However, power is no longer an area of concern for me with the Z Flip. Here you get the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 system on a chip coupled with 8 gigabytes of RAM and either 128, 256, or 512 gigabytes of internal storage. You also find a 10 megapixel camera sitting on the Infinity O cutout, so no under display camera like you see on the Z Fold 4. And I'm actually glad, because the Z Fold 4 internal camera isn't as good as what you're seeing on the Z Flip 4 internal camera. By the way, videos on the Z Fold 4 are coming as well, so be sure you're subscribed. Now, the primary camera on the Z Flip 4 is a dual 12 megapixel setup with a standard wide and ultra wide pair. Battery wise, we're seeing a few very nice improvements. First, we now have a 3700 milliamp hour dual battery, which is up from the 3300 we had last year. The Z Flip 4 also picks up super fast charging for the first time, allowing it to go from 0 to 50% charge in about 30 minutes with a 25 watt adapter. That is not included in the box. You need to buy that separately if you want it. You also have fast wireless charging 2.0 and wireless power share, which lets you use the phone as a wireless charger to charge other devices like other phones or earbuds, etc. The Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4 drops on August 26th at a starting price of $999. You can get it in Bora Purple, Graphite, pink, gold, and blue, but there's also the Bespoke editions, which lets you customize the colors even more. I will have links down below if you want to reserve one for yourself. Any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll meet you there for further discussion. Thanks for watching as always, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm Andrew Edwards and I will catch you in the next video.